Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. In honor of last episode, the Rhythm Section podcast. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out the last episode I put out, where I give you the origin story of the podcast, but also it's a life story and how it changed not only my life, but my mother's life. So go check that out. And it was also an effort to give more context on this kind of series I'm going through right now, where I'm bringing everybody up to date and up to speed. But first, what do you guys think of this mustache here? Look pretty good? You know, I was walking down the street earlier today and someone was like, "Hey, you're handsome." I was like, "Thanks. I appreciate that." Then they said, "You know what? If David Coverdale had a mustache, that's what you look like." So, anyways, my business is not doing well. This is still going to have some history to get you up to speed here as to why my studio's not doing well and how it started and when it started to crash and burn. Now, this is going to overlap a little bit in some past videos, but as I've mentioned, I got into podcasting in 2018, started the LLC in 2019. Things continued to grow. In the summer of 2022, I signed a lease for a commercial space. When I signed this lease, at the time, I made a smart decision. I made a responsible business decision. Obviously, when you open up a studio or a brick and mortar for any business, you're bringing on way more overhead. And at the time, my business was in a position where that it could take on that extra overhead without bringing in any new business. I had cash flow, I had cash for investment, I was even paying down on some debt. I was like, okay, it's time to pull the trigger on the studio. Found the space that I'm in currently, signed the dotted line, and off we went. So I started building in technically August of 2022, and it was exciting. You know, I was so happy that I was making this move. And in the early stages, I just had one room, and it started with a curtain, a big window. That was a fun task for me and Mama D to figure that out. And then I started building my desk, my workstation. I wanted to get that set first, and then build everything else around me. So that's what I do. I also schedule a ribbon cutting for February 7th, 2023. That's important to know. You'll hear why in a minute. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'm sitting at my desk and I get a text from a client. "Hey, we need to talk." And I was like, okay, I already know what this vibe is like. It's not the first time a client has texted me in that way. I know what's coming, but it's coming from a big client. One of three big cash cows, if you will, pillars, the legs of the SRP Studios tripod, is wanting to talk, and I can already see where this is going. And I mean, they're awesome. They're loyal to me for a couple years. It was a great gig, and he was upfront with me. The powers that be on their end cut the budget, but they gave me a notice. They said the podcast was going to continue through the rest of the year. It was still a hit. It was a gut punch. I'm like, why now? As I open the studio. Now, these three pillars that I'm fixing to talk through paid several $1,000s a month. I also had a bank of good mid-level clients and some small ones, but looking back on it, I had too many eggs in one basket. So I have learned. Okay, so client number one of three gives me, at that time, probably a 90-day notice. I'm like, it's okay. take a breath. This isn't good, but move forward. 2 weeks later, pillar number 2 sends me a text. Hey, Derek, we need to talk. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. No, not another one. Great people, same story. The money that was backing this company that had this podcast cut the funds immediately. Done, gone, no notice. I'm like, wow, okay. This is interesting. Now panic is setting in. And constantly saying, why now? Why now? We roll into fall, early winter. Pillar number 3 starts acting funny. And by that I mean, after a consistent flow of work for 2 years, more than 2 years, things start tapering off. It was so consistent that you could tell something was up. And this is typical in the podcast world. I mean, I've had so many clients flake and disappear and act weird and say one thing and do another thing, but they're mid-sized to low-level clients, you know, as terms of job, revenue, and contract. But these 3 biggies, woo. So the third client is now ghosting a little bit. Email, send another email. Hey, just checking in. You're trying to be nice. Just checking in on where things are at. I noticed things are starting to be a little inconsistent. Just want to see what's going on. Please just let me know if it's anything I can do to help. Nothing. Then finally get an email back. Hey, we're going through some things right now. We're going to have to slow it down a little bit, but I'll give you more details soon. Okay? That drags on another 2-3 weeks. Finally, I get one of the clients, and you know, there was multiple people. This client, I was working with 3 people. One of those 3 finally got on the phone with me, and she was like, yes, we're cutting XYZ, but we're keeping these 3 other things. We're still going with you. It's just, unfortunately, we have to cut some things down, but this other stuff over here to the side, that's remaining. Like, okay. They did not remain, and they just poof into the ether and ghosted me. And that's what hurt me the most. Was I had a great relationship with these people. Great. We were loyal to them. We went above and beyond for them, and had multiple people on my team working with them. We met on Zoom calls every month. We were like a partnership, and couldn't pay me enough respect to communicate with me. Number 1, gave me a notice. Awesome. Number 2, cut immediately, but they told me immediately, and they were respectful about it. But pillar number 3 didn't go about it that way. So by the end of 2022, I lost 70% of my business. 6 months after signing a lease. See what I'm saying here? And it was terrifying. Let me remind you that I had a ribbon cutting set in place for February 7th. And I did it that way because I wanted to have that deadline. Also, there's significance in that date. I had this ribbon cutting on February 7th, 2023 was 364 days after my first ribbon cutting. The first ribbon cutting I had was before I had a studio. I just joined the chamber, and unbeknownst to me, you can still have a ribbon cutting if you don't have brick and mortar. You just have the ribbon cut in front of the chamber office. That's what I did. I parlayed that with the launch of the Real Hernando podcast as well. So it was sort of like a double ribbon cutting. I used that to launch the podcast, launch my business, and it all well and good. So opening the studio, I'm like, I want to do my second ribbon cutting 1 year to the day, almost to the day. It should have been February 8th, but it didn't work out where I could do that day, so I chose the 7th. So there's sentimental value in the date I chose. Also, it set a deadline for me. So I just had to build things up to the best I could get it with what I had to that date. And trust me, to this day, we're in August, close to September 2024, I'm still upgrading, or might be downgrading a bit. We'll get into that. So I have this as a distraction though, because I'm just in tunnel vision. I'm trying to avoid the noise of destruction and collapse and prep the studio and get it operable and presentable for that ribbon cutting on February 7th, 2023. And it was a nice distraction, but there was always that cloud over me, not knowing what I'm going to do. And I'm going to throw up some pictures. We get to the ribbon cutting. I'm going to throw up some pictures. You'll see pictures of us in the lobby area where the actual ribbon was cut. You'll see a big group of people behind me. A lot of them are chamber members, chamber board directors, the president, vice president, and the mayor's back there. Of course, you see me up front with my mom and Skylar. I'm going to randomly just throw up some other photos showing the lobby area. And then let me show you a picture of the studios. This is the most primitive version of the studios that you're looking at right now. It's way upgraded over time as far as quality and the visual aesthetics of the studio. But at the end of the day, that's what I built it to. Now I want to put up a picture of me, my mom, and Skylar standing in front of my business sign in the lobby of the building I'm in. And I promise you, there's a man dying behind that smile on that face. It was such a radical feeling to know that I'm having this big moment in my life. Everyone's patting me on the back. Congratulations. Man, this is amazing. What you've done here is awesome. I can't wait to see what you're doing with it. I'm so proud of your success. And I'm smiling. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it, man. That's pretty good. Thank you. Meanwhile, melting on the inside because I have nothing. The moments that I could enjoy, I was able to escape the cloud a little bit and kind of being in the moment. That I was able to put myself in the moment in certain points. But 75% of that day sucked. Never showed it though. When I woke up on February 8th, the day after the ribbon cutting, I thought at that time it was going to be the most depressed I was going to be for the rest of my life. Wrong. I've surpassed that level of depression and anxiety since then. But I barely could get out of bed. The weight was all there now. I no longer had the distraction of the ribbon cutting. I had something very serious to focus on with a deadline. It's done. And now it's go time. And I am paralyzed, is the best way I can put it. What also needs to be mentioned is how I got the business that I did have. And you've heard me talk about this before in one of my earlier videos. It's a website called Upwork.com where entrepreneurs can go look at job feeds and put in bids for jobs. And that's how I built my business. And Upwork was great. It worked. And around this same time, it stopped working. I could not get any work out of it. It turned spammy. It turned into entrepreneurs willing to work for next to nothing to do the same work I do. The businesses coming in looking for these entrepreneurs were just looking for the bottom dollar. Plus, you have people overseas that will work for $3 an hour. So all of a sudden, my main resource that was working so well for me and feeding me this work, that died. So in a way, I lost 4 pillars. I had 4 legs to a table that were all cut right off. The problem with that is also, as I've learned now, the problem with Upwork is I never learned how to properly market my business. That was my marketing. It was all warm leads, job feeds. This person's looking for a podcast editor. Put a bid in. You take that resource away, now you're classic old school marketing. How do you get your business advertised and marketed, and how do you get these new clients organically? The hard way. I never learned that skill. I still haven't. I did, however, join BNI, another thing I mentioned in a previous video, Business Network International. It was $1,000 to join. I promise you, I really had no business spending that, but I saw the value in what that program offers. If you didn't see my previous interview, real quick, you belong to what's called a chapter, and you are in a room with 20 other people that have all different industries, but you try to build relationships, so you refer work back and forth to each other. So I jump into this business community. Now I have some visibility. You get to stand up every week and do a 60-second elevator pitch, if you will. Every week, everyone gets that turn, and they get to learn more about what you do. They get to know you better. You're constantly educating everybody in the room what it is that you offer, what you do, what you're looking for, who's a good referral partner for me. And over time, it does work, and it did. And I promise you, without being part of BNI, my studio would have disappeared a long time ago. It would have been very short-lived. And that was great. And things started turning around until it's been 1 step forward, 2 steps back for 2 years now. August-ish of 2022 is when things started feeling weird. And then that fall, things started crumbling. And now 2 years later, here I am, talking to you in my bedroom. So how did I survive this long? Debt. That's how I survived. Constant grind. Even though it was 1 step forward, 2 steps back, it was enough to keep me going, and then I would have to lean on debt to pay a bill. Lean on debt to pay an editor. There were some times where I had to pay a team member via my credit card because that was the only option I had. Like I said, when I moved into the studio, I had cash flow that I was going to use parts of to buy the stuff I needed. I had it all planned where I wasn't going to have to add any more debt to my life to even build the studio. Well, now everything disappears. I hold on to the cash, and now I got to use debt to buy all the stuff. So there's that debt. The cash starts slowly disappearing, so I'm having to pull from it. And then I'd get a win, and I'd get a good client or a new sponsor for the Real Hernando, and then something would go away. Like, it was just constant set up, let down, set up, let down, set up, let down. But I made it on my own, again, debt, until a month ago. And it finally came to a head. What I finally had to do is ask for help. And I don't know about you, but asking for help is not easy, is it? It's not. And especially when you have to go to your family for it. 46-year-old man and failing and need a bailout. Not a good feeling at all. And I should have asked for help 3 months ago, 4 months ago. I should have let my family know immediately when I started losing these clients when I first opened the studio. But I told nobody. Nobody. I was in my own hell. I didn't share it with anyone. Up until a month ago, everyone thought I was doing great. They saw the studio. I continued to upgrade it. At the end of the day, I was like, no, I need to keep making this thing better and better and better. And if I had to buy something, I'd use debt. Often I would be resourceful and just use some of the stuff I already had. I mean, I just have an abundance of stuff that I've collected over time and different ways to light a studio, just what have you. I've always made it better and better. So to everybody else's view, Eric's doing great. I wasn't. Hanging on by a thread. But then the thread, if not asking for help, that thread would have snapped and I would have had to break my lease. That's where I got to. I try not to be too prideful here. Part of this channel is to be vulnerable and upfront and genuine and just honest about it. I asked Mama D for help. And guess what? She pulled through. That's right. Mama D to the rescue. I know you're watching, Mom. I love you. You have my back. Again. And that's why this whole thing is emotional in a way, because it's more than having financial issues. It's trying something and in essence failing at it. You know, I want to be successful. I was successful until I wasn't. And then some would argue success isn't always about the dollar sign. If you do look at it that way, then yeah, I am successful. You know, I've built something really cool. I've created stuff that have connected with people between this and my Hernando-based podcast. Worked with a lot of great people. I've provided a strong service to a lot of people where I help them kind of fulfill their vision on their content. I have an awesome daughter that I hope I'm raising right. I have full custody, single dad. So the assistance Mama D granted me helped stabilize. It's not forever. It wasn't supposed to be. It was a gift to try to get back to level playing ground. But more decisions need to be made. It's not over yet. My lease runs out the end of this year. The last day of December of 2024 is when my lease is up. Working on how to keep it, downsize, don't keep it at all. Who knows? I don't know yet. I'm working through those things and eliminating responsibilities around me that were extra. And we'll get to, I'm going to do another video about those things. And then, you know, I want to do a video about being in a position where you have to ask yourself, do you want to continue doing this? Never mind, continue to fight for the studio. It is, do I even care anymore? Do I hate the podcast industry because of the pain it's put me through? Or have I fallen out of love with it because it's run its course? Have I lost confidence in it because clearly I'm having trouble getting business? That's the mess that goes on in the head. So I've got you pretty damn current now. Thank you for watching as always. That was an entrepreneurial story. I'm not alone in this. God, no. And so many people out there are homeless, you know, and I try to put things into perspective But at the end of the day, when you're in your own hell, you're in your own hell, and it still sucks. And as always, I hope this story can resonate with anyone, because at the end of the day, it's about loss that you didn't see coming, and it bruising your confidence and ego. Humbled. Definitely a humbling experience, which is good. Gosh, I could do a whole video on trying to figure out the lessons in this, and I've learned them. Okay, I've taken my lookings. I'm ready for the next phase, but we got to figure out what that next phase is, don't we? So that's it. Thanks, guys, and I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll talk soon. Bye.